My brain's splitting off in so many different directions. My brain's splitting off in so many different. My brain's splitting off in so many different directions that no one has the answers to. My dad was a shrink. Certain things upset me. And my dad was a shrink. Certain things upset me. And my dad was a shrink. Things upset me. What's the furthest star, and then what's beyond the furthest star? What's the furthest star, and then what's beyond the furthest star? What's the furthest star, and then what's beyond the furthest star? Questions that no one has the answers to.
I'm Jeremy Greer.
And I'm Gary Butterfield.
And this is Days of Future Cast, the podcast where Gary and I talk about the series X-Statix for maybe not the last time, but it's definitely the last issue. The very last, the finale, if you will.
The first run
of the first
run. They're talking about bringing it back. But at the very least, the first run.
We haven't read any of that. I know some people have asked if we're going to read the Wolverine and Dupe special. I will probably read that. I don't think we're going to do an episode on it. Gary has told me that it's bad. I'm still kind of curious about it, but not curious enough to spend a bunch of time talking about something that just would take me like 15 minutes to read and then be out of my mind forever. So
it's really weird. It's a weird fucking comic. If we were going to revisit this series, I would rather revisit the Dead Girl miniseries, but we're going to take a break.
We are.
Nice to have some variety.
We're going to do a feedback episode. So if you have thoughts and questions or concerns about our X-Statix coverage, get those into daysoffuturecast.com/contact, or you can DM us on Twitter at JGGreer or at DOFC Podcast. Either one of those is fine. And we've already got some letters, so thank you for writing in. And then we're going to be taking kind of a tour through some X-Men #1 issues, which we're very excited about because it's always weird to kind of jump around in history and be able to compare and contrast some of this stuff. So yeah, that's going to be our next batch of episodes. And then with that, we will probably have finally decided what our next long series coverage is going to be. And we'll let you guys know ahead of time.
Yeah, we're a short series. We might do like a mini series or something.
I've already said long on the podcast. Can't change it.
Yep. Well, after this, we're going to be covering Uncanny X-Men up through issue 646.
We're going to do the 80s.
Yep. So this is the issue 26 of X-Statix. The cover, we got Guy Smith with a huge smoking hole in his chest, and it says the downbeat yet strangely fascinating or strangely moving final issue. I have a story about this issue.
Okay, lay it on me.
I was collecting this comic, and then my band went on tour, and we went to the East Coast, and we came back to one of my friends' hometown on our way back. There, we were playing a show that night. It was like the penultimate night of the tour, and we were in a comic store, and I did not have a pull box for this comic. I was just picking it up when I came in. So I came into the comic store. I was like, "Hey, the last issue of X-Statix is out. Is that around?" Because I wanted to read it. And the comic book shop guy is like, "Oh, I mean, we sold out of that." And then like a weird old guy behind me puts his hand on my shoulder and goes, "You can give him the one out of my box. Self-indulgent crap." So, yay.
Okay, cool. That's weird. Do you think he bought the first 25?
That's the thing, right? I suppose.
Or maybe he just hadn't, weird. Every time he just kept forgetting to take it out of his pull box, but not buying it.
Yeah. It was also happened my friend Andy, who was with me, had loaned me very early on the first trade paperback of The Walking Dead. Mm-hmm. And then he had seen a thing that said The Walking Dead #1 was worth a lot of money. And he thought it meant the first trade, not the first issue.
Ah.
So I remember him at the other thing, he was trying to talk to me about finding out where that was. So I'd give it back to him and he could sell it. And he had to talk to the guy and learn that. So it was a really weirdly momentous comic shop trip in the middle of that rock.
It's a lot going on, man. It's a lot.
A lot going on. But the weird it is when you get touched in public. Just straight up hand on my shoulder, it's going to be Pete Milligan, when I turn around or something like that.
That's not nowadays. I think that would weird me out a whole lot. Just because of COVID or whatever. It skeeves me out to be near anybody nowadays. I'm probably going to have to rehabilitate myself to be able to go into a bar or go to Mardi Gras or whatever. But before that, I think the Southerners, by just their nature, are a little bit more touchy feely. So a lot of arm pats or shoulder jabs or whatever, like that's kind of natural even with strangers. Like sometimes I don't know, like it would not surprise me to get my arm touched like in a going to a comic book shop, I guess is what I'm saying, which is not a weird flex, I promise.
Yeah, well, it's open season on touching Jeremy Greer, so we do in-person Duckfest again. This everybody gets a touch.
No,
we're gonna do a thing where everybody in the auditorium is touching one part of you.
Do not like.
Yeah.
Unless you want to hear me just go off like the Operation Board game, just
no, Jeremy, like. Let's get into it.
Sure.
Let's get into the sad final issue.
So we start in the middle of a fight. And we're going to be kind of bouncing back and forth between two timelines. So the current one, where they're in the middle of this fight, which is a lot harder than they anticipated, and then a little bit in the past, where they were kind of leading up to making the decision to come to this fight as like one final thing, right? Get the gang back together for one last caper. I just got a text from Autumn when I made that noise about the Operation game. Both of the dogs looked up because that's the noise I make when the dogs are doing something bad, and like. You've seen my house. I'm like 3 rooms away. Like, what are you doing, dogs? Get it together.
They're super hearing. Yeah. It starts off with Dead Girl in trouble, like Venus de Milo holding her, saying, "Dead Girl, I think she's dead." Vivisector makes a crack. He's like, "No, I mean actually dead. Like she's disintegrating."
Yeah.
It looks like the Maitlands and Beetlejuice as they're getting older and stuff when Beetlejuice summons them. And basically the idea is like things are really bad. They're in a mansion and they're just getting their asses absolutely kicked.
Yeah.
And it cuts to this, this thing. They're like, oh, it was supposed to be a walk in the park. Anarchist says, where have I heard that before? If anybody has a weak constitution, look the other way. He opens up a window to see that there are huge attack helicopters about to shoot them. And we get the issue title, which is, "Are You Ready?"
And like right before this, Venus de Milo says out loud how scared she is about all of this, and we get some dialogue from Mr. Sensitive of like that's something that we don't tell you as you watch the show, like about how scared we are, how human we are, which I think is like really interesting that they're going through all of these emotions in the very last issue. And then from here, he asked Venus to get out of here for her to teleport the group out because she can't. She's barely holding her body together as it is. And like they have,
well, she can't at this point. She just, if she took Dead Girl with her, like her body would disintegrate inside her and kill her. She's still okay, and they could leave at this point with Dead Girl, but even though they've been kind of goofy, ironic postmodern funsters, they have enough connection where Anarchist is like, we came in together, we go out together.
Yeah,
like we have to do this. They get attacked, and we cut to the missiles, and Guy Smith, for all it looks like, got hit by a missile in the chest. He has a huge hole in his chest.
And he's like in his head, he's narrating like the taste of champagne, how it hits you in the stomach, and then the head, like it's love. And like he's remembering back to the X-Statix farewell party, where he's getting approached by like a business dude of like, hey, like you could take care of this. It's easy money. It's a lot of money. Like you could just go knock this out as your final thing. And this is the X-Statix farewell party. Like, and it's got a bunch of superheroes in it. Like all of the Avengers are there. Fantastic Four is there. It looks like Cyclops is in the background. Daredevil is there. Like just a bunch of people to come and hang out with X-Statix.
Yeah. I like how Tony Stark is walking the Invisible Woman while Reed Richards is just off to the side.
Yeah.
In front of Namor. Scandal.
Susan, what's wrong with you?
He's basically making, the rich guy is making, he says like one last payday. And Anarchist is the only person who has any sense. He's like, isn't that what punch drunk fighters say right before they step into the ring and lose whatever brains they have left? Mr. Sensitive is like, no, I mean, we're still really good at this and this is a lucrative job. And Anarchist raises the point, like, what is it? Why can't you let this go? Now this is ending, you don't know how to be. And Guy has this stomach pain here, this incredibly sharp pain in his stomach, which he attributes to bad shrimp, but we're going to later find is a premonition.
Yeah.
A bad feeling of this. Because
as we turn the page, like he's holding his stomach and he's like laying on the ground in almost the exact same position that he is in the future, where he's got this huge mortal wound in his chest and his stomach. And he's asking in the future, as he's injured, he's asking for Venus, and Venus is gone. She is like just passed out or possibly dead. We don't know just yet. But Archivist, Jesus Christ, that's the worst one yet, Gary.
Archivist?
Where did that come from?
Very different kind of superhero.
That's not the guy that we know and love. The dude named Tyke is going to name himself the Archivist. What are you talking about?
God, I love the Archivist.
It's very much a Venture Brothers thing, right? Like you could just see it like immediately in that style. The Anarchist uses his acid sweat to basically like seal Guy's wound up, so he's not going to bleed out.
Yeah. So it looks like it's just the two of them at this point. We cut back to Venus using her power on his stomach to make him feel better, back in the past. And he's saying like, hey, maybe we shouldn't go on this mission. And she's saying like, they're offering us so much money. Like, we go out and start a new life kind of together romantically. People like us, we need to be really loaded just to feel normal. It's not enough to be rich. Like we have to keep moving on. We've done the hard part. We fought the Avengers. We fought a pop star who looked like Lady Diana with a wig. We have to do this before we can walk away. And he's saying like, is that possible? Can we walk away from this? Like Zeitgeist couldn't, Edie couldn't do it. That doesn't work for us. And she says, we're special. We're the ones who are going to break the mold. We can walk away. Now let's get out of here. And Guy very tragically says, he says, let's get out of here. She says, the party's still going. And he says, there'll be other parties.
Yeah.
Which there will not.
And as they go home, they summon the other members of X-Statix. Dead Girl and the Archivist are driving around when they get the call. Miles is with his new boyfriend, which I don't think we know. Like, it's just a guy that he's hanging out with when he gets the page. It's like, nope, this is my last one, I promise. Here, you can even keep my, like, emergency watch that tells you that I'll come back for it, I guess, is the thing there. Like, this is really and truly my last call for these people.
Yeah. Yep. The Anarchist, when he's driving in with Dead Girl is sick. She's trying to, like, he's saying, hey, let's just not do this mission. You should call in sick. And she's like, I can't call in sick. I'm fucking dead. But she looks bad.
Yeah. Her
cheeks are really sunken and everything. They get to the X-Statix theater where they talk about the mission. It's a mansion overrun by armed gunmen. This is, this should be easy. Vivisector raises the point, like, why do we do this? Why not the cops? And he says, they're rich, so they want the best. The Anarchist points out, he's like, hey, this is a couple of years ago, I sat in this exact same seat and listened to the coach, and Zeitgeist say the same thing. It's going to be a walk in the park, but later it was just me and Edie and Mr. Sensitive, or me and Edie who survived. Everyone else died.
Yeah.
Harkening back to the first issue.
And again, just like, why? Right? Like, they don't have to do this. They're already disbanding the team. Like, why are we even bothering with this? And Venus de Milo makes the point of like, hey, maybe this will be therapeutic. We could do that. And he's like, and the Anarchist is like, but like, even if it's therapeutic, like, why are we doing it just for money? Like, are we just supervillains now? Like, why? Like, there's no hero stuff in this whatsoever. There's just rich people who don't want to rely on the government. Like, what is the deal? And Guy interprets this as like, does he know something? Does he know this is going to go bad, right? Or is he just being like argumentative as he always is? And then we cut to the future where the Anarchist is just like mowing down people with the sweat and keeping like the building from falling on them, keeping shots and explosions from happening, like protecting him and Guy with using his sweat, but he's running out of his power, right? Like there's only so much sweat to go around. Man, the more you talk about sweat, the grosser it gets, right? Jesus Christ.
You didn't really put together that his power is really gross, but him sweating into that wound to close it, it's pretty nasty.
Oof. In the South, really, that's common, though. I don't know if you know that or not.
Yeah. If you're in a comic store, you should sweat on another man's shoulder just to let him know you like him.
Mm-hmm.
He's confronting him, in the current times. Mr. Sensen confronting him is like, hey, did you know anything about it? He's like, no, I didn't know anything. That girl was sick and didn't want to say anything. I was trying to cover for her. Like if I could convince us not to go on this thing, she would have been able to stay home.
Yeah.
He says, well, you should have said something. He's like, yeah, she would have killed me. And they're both kind of regretting that they went into this. Like they both had a bad feeling about it and they went into it anyway.
Yep.
So trust your instincts.
As this conversation is happening, they're like, Guy is holding his wound chest, and they're getting shot at this entire time. And as he like flies over to knock down a couple of dudes, like he tears open his wound, and they're looking for Venus, and they look over to where she was, and there's just like a stain there. But luckily, she's not just a stain; she is still alive. And but now she's like, she's like, I know I look awful. Stop staring at me. And guys, like, you look beautiful as always. And he's like, get us out of here. And he's like, I can't. Like, I can barely hold myself together. I got a little ahead of myself earlier, so sorry about that.
Yeah, she got shot by a missile.
Yeah.
Sad.
And like
or go ahead.
Just in the middle of all of this, like they get like a missile explosion from the helicopter that opens up the wall or the roof of this place, and they see like 6 or 7 attack helicopters coming after them.
Yep. And she says, I may not have the power to teleport us away from here, but I can probably take care of those helicopters.
Yeah.
And everyone's on their last legs. Like, this is fucking dire. Guy Smith's trying to stop her from suiciding, and she's like, no, if I don't come back, it's been really sweet. At least you didn't see me go topless, which we'll find out what that means later.
Yep.
At this point. And he tries to stop her, tries to command her to stop, but he can't. And she takes out the helicopters and presumably dies. It is hard to tell.
Yeah.
But sacrifices herself in some way.
To save the rest of them. Like they don't know where she is, but there's still like a bunch of people on the way, even though the helicopters are there. So Guy grabs Tyke and literally flies him out of there because Tyke is running out of sweat again. And then Guy's on his last legs. Like, this is causing him an incredible amount of pain. In fact, it probably could be killing him to be able to fly out of there. But he does get the two of them out and back over to where Vivisector and Dupe are lying on the ground, also looking very dead.
Yes. We later find out that Vivisector is not dead in the future, in the relaunch. And Dupe also shows up in Wolverine and the X-Men.
Yeah.
So, because basically they're just saying like this is really horrible. I love this like really little meta bit where Anarchist says like, who the hell are these people? And Guy Smith says like, does it matter? Did it ever really matter? And that's the thing. It's like, it's not, this comic is not as plotty as that, where it's about, figuring out who Mr. Code is or figuring out these puzzle box plots. It's just about them having this exclamation point at the end of their run because they've completed the idea.
Exactly.
This is X-Statix has run its course. And they're talking about the ending. They're saying like, I don't want to end like, in a hole, like hiding, let's go out like heroes. Let's go out like, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, let's, at our prime, we can just kind of give them as good as we can. And they bust out and they just get fucking mowed down.
That's it. Yeah. They both get just murdered.
Yep.
And then we go back in time to where they're at their little staging operation, and discussing like what they're going to do on this. And Venus de Milo makes the joke of like, you can't believe how much Hugh Hefner offered just to show me topless. And Dead Girl is like, he offered me a full $1 million to go fully frontal until he saw what that was for me, which I think is actually a pretty good joke.
Yeah.
And like, it's just a very like casual conversation. Like, okay, like this is what we're just kind of, laughing and joking as we gear up to go to what's going to be their last mission ever.
Yeah, it's very sad. Like Miles, can you guys fight when we get back? I've got to finish an article in the New Yorker about surviving superhero team breakups. Just very on the nose. And they say, I love the way this ends. He's like, okay, let's do our last payday. They teleport out, and the final page is a full page spread of the theater, except it is empty, and it shows the exit sign now. They are gone.
And that's it.
And that's the end of the first run of X-Statix. A book that is mostly to be funny, but takes its characters very seriously in a way that I really appreciate.
When you told me that this was one of your favorite books when we were kind of gearing up, and you told me that before, like just in talking about X-Men stuff. But even with your description, I really didn't know what to expect out of it. So getting into it and really coming to love the characters, but also love the way that they don't necessarily treat these characters as like godlike or immortal or anything like that. I think that was the real thing that worked for me in all of this is like, yeah, we're going to create these characters. We're going to make you like them, and we're going to make them vulnerable, both emotionally and physically and in surprising ways. And we're going to like kind of take you through that journey because we don't need to have a Cyclops at the end of this. We don't have to have a Storm at the end of this. Like we created Mr. Sensitive. He can just die at the end of this when we're done with him. And it's so refreshing to get that from like mainstream superhero comics, even though I know this isn't quote unquote like mainstream, but it's still fucking Marvel, right? Like,
well, it has the X name on it. It was like way more mainstream than, a lot of things.
So like all of that stuff working, and when it does work, like it works really, really well. I think it has some clunky parts here and there, but like everything does. So I'm really, really happy that we read and kind of were able to discuss this all the way through because it was so much fun.
Yeah, there's not really there are comics that are this good, but there aren't any other comics like this. I don't know, even going outside of mainstream Marvel stuff, I don't know anything that feels like this. Like there's like Next Wave and stuff. There are things that are funny, but this specific combination of like goofy awareness and heart is something that I think is actually pretty special. And I would love to have more of this. Like I would love to have this be a thing that I can point to. Other, not even just comics, like other works that have this kind of feeling to them. And it's like pretty tricky, it's hard to find a direct comparison. Like it does feel very, very special.
It feels very unique because it is, spandex clad superheroes fighting other superheroes. But like it has a lot of heart behind that. Like it has a lot of heart behind that. It's just really, really interesting and fascinating. And like, we kept saying it, like the way that it takes on, like, just very briefly, like race issues or class issues, or like even the stuff that we just talked about with the wars in Africa, even though it was based on a fake country, like all that stuff, like feels a little bit more real that we don't necessarily get from Marvel. It feels like a much more honest take or much more empathetic take on some of those things. So, yeah,
absolutely. Like it is it takes those issues seriously, and not least of which, like, we didn't talk about it as much because it is, kind of an old standby, but as far in terms of like being about fame, or celebrity, like that's something that is, we get a lot of work that kind of parodies that or, takes the piss out of it now, but early on in this medium, that was kind of new to me.
Absolutely.
The idea of, really drawing a line under kind of reality TV culture and very shallow image obsessed culture. Taking a superhero comic to do that is a really nice mashup.
Yeah.
Unexpected.
And like making the idea of a superhero team like something that it totally wasn't before this, which was like, oh no, we want to do all of that stuff, but we're mostly here for the fame and the money and everything. Like making the characters quote unquote shallow or have shallow ambitions, but also have the depth that they need to be characters is something that I don't know that really any comic book has taken on since. Like it's really, really good. Especially like, from the big two. So.
Yep. Very, very good. One of my favorite comics of all time.
Yep.
So, will X-Men #1 stand up as well? Time will tell.
We'll see. Can a 50-year-old comic really stand up? No.
No. The Bronze Age of comics or the Golden Age of comics is actually pretty lousy.
Yeah.
And a lot of it doesn't seem so gold to me.
Got him.
Thanks everybody for
Angry Gary got him coming out.
Hey Stan Lee, suck my dick. So
I'll give you a Marvel prize.
Thanks everybody.
Or,
I'll give you a no prize.
No prize. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. We appreciate everybody coming with us on this journey. It was really cool to hear people who did not know this series giving it a shot. Because we were covering it. Because I like the idea of people checking out this comic that needs more attention.
Me too. Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And thanks everybody else. We will be doing, we're kind of taking a little break to do some shorter stuff, and then we'll be back into another long running thing. Mm-hmm. Get in your responses to X-Statix for us, as we mentioned at the beginning of the episode. People are listening to these in a big clump on Patreon, so we don't have to do the whole thing. But go back to the beginning of the episode if you want to hear how to do that.
Yeah.
And we would appreciate.
And if you do want to suggest stuff, we'll probably have already decided. But if you've got something that you think is really interesting, and it's not just like Astonishing X-Men that we should cover, it's like an overlooked, even like a 2 or 3 or 4 issue arc or whatever, like hit us up, let us know. We'll always take your suggestions and stride. So,
yeah, we have no plans to end the show. So even if we end up doing another like 40 comic run, we'll still be looking for things after that as well.
Exactly. Yeah. We got a lot of comics to get through before we just start doing MCU stuff in order. So Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
See you soon.
Yeah. Take care.